Canadians across the country are headed to the polls next month as our new Prime Minister Mark Carney has called a snap election. And with tensions rising between the Conservative and Liberal parties, there's just one question on everyone's mind. Who the f*** is Mark Carney? Well, I'm glad you asked. You see, for my non-Canadian followers who don't quite understand, here in Canada, you can be the head of government without an election and without being a sitting member of parliament. Hell, you don't even have to be born here. Our system of government is really something special, so let me give you a quick breakdown. We don't elect a prime minister directly the way Americans elect a president. Instead, voters elect a member of parliament to the House of Commons, and the leader of the party that wins the most seats usually becomes the prime minister. Notice I said usually because our elections are completely symbolic and utterly meaningless. Why?
They're not even a real country anyway.
Because the head of government has no real authority here. That privilege is reserved for the head of state, King Charles III. Our true leader, King Charles, can overrule the Prime Minister, Parliament, and the people of Canada at any time he sees fit. A fact we saw play out in the King Byng affair of 1925, where the King's representative, Governor General Byng, rejected the will of the Prime Minister, forced him to resign, and appointed a new prime minister of his choosing. An event that caused such an uproar here in Canada that Canadians demanded a very strong apology for it.
Sorry.
Of course, nothing actually changed. On behalf of the king, the Governor General to this day still maintains the authority to reject past bills, dissolve parliament, and appoint or dismiss the prime minister of the country. Facts that, according to a 2008 survey, are completely unknown to the average Canadian. About 75% of Canadians believe incorrectly that the Prime Minister or Governor General is the head of state, and 51% wrongly agreed that Canadians elect their Prime Minister. So we're sort of like the States where our elections are rigged, only our masters skip over the theatrics of pretending they're not. Which honestly I appreciate. Could you imagine if this level of honesty existed in every facet of life? Thank you for shopping at Chapters Indigo. Would you like to make a small donation to the Love of Reading Foundation? Maybe. What is it? I'm so glad you asked. While it's legally registered as a charity, all proceeds go to underfunded schools who are then forced to purchase books directly from Chapters Indigo at full retail price, making it virtually indistinguishable from a for-profit business. That sounds like a scam. Why would I give you my money? Because if you don't give me money today, everyone behind you in line is gonna think you hate children. This system of government is exactly what brought us to where we are now. You see, back on January 6th, there was an insurrection. No, I'm not talking about the Great Tour of the American Capital. I'm talking about the resignation of our now ex-Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, after he noticed he was losing popularity with the Canadian population. Well, that's one way of putting it.
You're a piece of criminal. You're a criminal.
But instead of dissolving Parliament, which would have triggered one of those fake elections we just talked about, he asked the Governor General, remember, that's the King's representative, to prorogue it, which means he put the government on a timeout so he could avoid the consequences of his actions and buy time to run a leadership race. Cue Mr. Mark Carney, who 5 days after winning the leadership election, became the 24th Prime Minister of Canada. Mark appears to have manifested from the nightmares of conspiracy theorists everywhere. He's a globalist central banker who's a member of the World Economic Forum, and he even has a transgender child to boot. He's referred to climate change as an emergency, and he's written a book called Values, where he promotes Marx and Engels, and outlines his strategies for correcting what he calls Western moral rot, through an initiative we've all heard of before called the Great Reset. A plan for the future where ordinary people will see less choice, less flying, less meat, more inconvenience, and more poverty. He advocates for a one-world government and central bank digital currency. Oh, and he also wants to ban gas vehicles by the year 2035. If you thought eggs were expensive, just wait till you find out what an EV lemon sets you back.
He called me and said, "Oh, I got bad news, Mr. Turner. You need a new hybrid battery, and it's gonna cost $18,000 for the battery, and another 2,000 to have it installed.
And if you look closely, here we see a conspiracy theorist being born in the wild.
How does it cost $20,000 to just put a battery in a car that's only paid $16,000? When I bought the car, it came with the battery, came with wheels, came with a frame, came with a body, came with glass.
As bad as this all sounds, it's not even the worst of Carney's plans for Canada. He is also part of something called the Century Initiative, a Canadian lobby group who wants to see the population of Canada, which currently sits at 41 million, increase to 100 million via mass immigration by the year 2100. 59 million people in Canada in just 75 years. That's 786,666 immigrants per year. I'm sure all those sixes are a coincidence, and I'm sure it's also a coincidence that the founder of the Century Initiative was shaking hands with the Indian Prime Minister back in 2015, right before we saw a massive and unrelenting flood of immigrants from that country. But none of this should come as any surprise, as replacing the founding stock of this country has always been the Liberal vision for Canada. It's an agenda called the Great Replacement, which I'm sure 51% of Canadians are completely unaware of. Alright guys, that's it for me today. If you like this video, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and check out some other videos from my channel. Also, if you want to support me and this channel, please consider joining my locals. The cat is walking around in the back. I post a post-show after every YouTube video, typically on Friday. So if you're interested in seeing that, I go into a little bit more depth about each of the topics. Consider joining me there. Okay, I will see you all soon, and I love you so much. Goodbye.